Roger Caldwell's voice was cold and absolute. "This is HOA property. Woodland Preserve Homeowners Association. You're trespassing on common land. That's a $500 fine. Like calling yourself HOA president could erase what the deed had proven since the tax sale. Like running board meetings with just your wife could establish authority over 600 acres you didn't own." What he didn't know. I had the county records showing his two-person HOA only governed 30 acres of residential lots. The bank statements proving he'd collected $82,000 from hunting leases and timber sales on my land. And the subdivision plat confirming he owned 2 acres while I'd purchased 598. Roger made the mistake every squatter makes. Assuming the investor who bought land for $6,000 would be too intimidated to fight back, he assumed wrong. This is the story of how a squatter paid $50,000 in restitution because he couldn't answer one question. Did your HOA bylaws grant authority over land the association never owned? Because property law doesn't care how long you used it, it cares who owns it. But let me start from the beginning. Before we dive into, I'd love to know where you're listening from today. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons for more interesting stories. Just like this, I've been buying and flipping land for 6 years. Started small, vacant lots in struggling neighborhoods, tax delinquent properties nobody wanted, buy for pennies on the dollar, clean up the title, flip to builders or hold for appreciation. It's nothing glamorous, but it paid better than my day job ever did. I learned early. The best deals come from tax auctions. Properties with years of unpaid taxes, owners who died or disappeared, land the county just wants off the books. You do your research, bid smart, and sometimes you get incredible value. That's how I found the 600 acres. I was scrolling through. Upcoming tax sales on a Tuesday night, coffee going cold, spreadsheet open on my second monitor. Most listings were typical. Abandoned houses, small residential lots. A few commercial parcels with environmental liens that made them worthless. Then I saw it. Parcel number 447-820015. 600.3 acres. Unincorporated land. Minimum bid, $6,000. I sat up. 600 acres for $6,000, $10 per acre. I clicked into the details. The property was in Harmon County, about 2 hours north, remote. No utilities listed, no road access mentioned. Zoned agricultural forestry. The tax history showed the previous owner, Woodland Development LLC, had stopped paying in 2014. 12 years of back taxes, debt. It accumulated to $18,000. The county was selling it to recover what they could. I pulled up Google Earth. The parcel was a massive rectangle of forest, bordered by state land on 2 sides, a county road on the 3rd, private parcels on the 4th. No structures visible in satellite view. It's trees. This could be a flip to a hunting club. Its timber value alone might be $50,000, or hold it. Wait for development to creep north. Sell for 10 times what I paid. Or it could be a disaster. Landlocked. Contaminated. Encumbered by easements I didn't know about. Only one way to find out. I registered for the auction. The online auction opened at 9 a.m. on Friday. I set my max bid at $15,000, still a steal if the land was remotely usable. Watch the clock count down. At 9:03, I placed my opening bid. $6. No competing bids. I waited, refreshed, checked the other parcels. Plenty of activity on the residential properties. Nothing on mine at 9:47. The auction closed. Parcel number 447-820015. Sold to Brian Holloway for $6,000. I stared at the screen, half expecting an error message. 600 acres. $6,000. I'd just bought more land than I'd ever owned, for less than a used car. Costs. Now, I just had to figure out what I'd actually bought. The deed arrived 2 weeks later. Clean transfer. No liens mentioned beyond the satisfied tax debt. I ordered a survey and title search, but those would take time. I decided to visit first. See what I was working with. The drive north took 2.5 hours. Harmon County was rural farmland, forest. Small towns that had peaked in the 1950s, the kind of place where land was cheap because nobody wanted to live there. I followed my GPS to the county road bordering the property, found a dirt track leading into the trees, barely wide enough for my truck. No gate, no signs. Overgrown but passable. I turned in. The track wound through dense forest, rutted and rough. Branches scraped the sides of my truck. I drove slowly, checking my GPS to make sure I was still on the parcel. Half a mile in, the forest opened up, and there, in a small clearing, was a cabin. I stopped. This wasn't on the satellite images. It wasn't mentioned in the auction listing. It was small, maybe 800 square feet, with a metal roof and vinyl siding that had seen better days. A propane tank sat beside it, firewood stacked under a tarp, pickup truck parked in front. Someone lived here. I got out slowly, unsure what I was walking into. The front door opened before I reached it. A man stepped out mid-40s, heavy build. Wearing work boots and a flannel shirt, he looked annoyed. "Help you with something?" "Hi," I said, trying to sound friendly. "I'm Brian Holloway. I just bought this property at the county tax auction." His expression hardened. "The hell you did." "I have the deed. I don't care what you have. This is private property." "No." "Trespassing." I stopped. "I'm not trespassing. I own this land." Bullshit. He crossed his arms. "This is HOA property. Woodland Preserve Homeowners Association. We have a lease. We've lived here for 8 years." I blinked. "What HOA?" "This is 600 acres of unincorporated forest. There's no subdivision here." "Shows what?" "You know," he gestured vaguely at the trees, "this whole area is Woodland Preserve, residential community. We're members. This cabin sits on common land under association agreement." I pulled the deed from my truck. "This says I own 600 acres. Parcel number 447820015. That includes this cabin." He barely glanced at it. "That sale was illegal. The county sold land they had no right to sell. The HOA owns this. We've been here since 2016. You need to leave." "Who are you?" "Roger Caldwell. HOA president. We're in violation of community bylaws by entering common area without authorization." I stared at him. "You're claiming to be HOA president of what? A forest? Of Woodland Preserve?" He stepped closer. "And trespassing on HOA common land is a $500 fine. I'm documenting this. You'll receive an invoice. Can't find me for being on land I own. We'll see what the HOA attorney says about that." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the sheriff. You're trespassing, and I want you removed." A woman appeared in the doorway, his wife, I assumed. 2 kids, maybe 8 and 10, peeked out behind her. "Roger, what's going on?" she asked. "Some guy claiming he bought the preserve, trying to kick us off our land." "I'm not trying to kick anyone off anything," I said, voice rising. "I bought this property legally. I'm just trying to figure out what's here." "What's here," Roger said coldly, "is an active residential community protected by HOA bylaws. You want access? Join the association. Pay dues. Follow the rules. Otherwise, get off our land." I looked at him, at the cabin, at the forest stretching in every direction. This was insane. "I'm leaving," I said, "but I'll be back. It's with a lawyer and a survey crew, because this is my land, not yours." "You do that?" Roger said. "And I'll make sure the HOA board knows you're harassing members. That's another violation." Got in my truck and back down the dirt track, hands shaking with anger and confusion. I pulled over a mile down the county road and called my title attorney. "Martin, it's Brian. I need you to research something. Woodland Preserve HOA, Harmon County. I just found a family living on the land I bought, claiming HOA authority. HOA. On 600 acres of unincorporated forest?" That's what he said. "A guy named Roger Caldwell. Claims he's HOA president. Says the land is common area." Martin was quiet. "Let me pull county records. I'll call you back." Sat there, engine idling, trying to process what had just happened. I'd bought land at a legal tax auction. Clean sale. A clear deed. And now some guy was claiming I'd trespassed on HOA property, threatening to fine me, calling himself president of an association that might not even exist. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Roger Caldwell. Woodland Preserve HOA. You are hereby notified of a $500 fine for unauthorized entry onto HOA common land. Payment due within 30 days. Failure to pay will result in lien action. I stared at the message. He was actually trying to fine me. For setting foot on land I owned, I texted back, "You have no authority to fine me. I own that land. Check the county records." His response came immediately. "The county records are wrong. HOA has superior claim. See you in court." I threw my phone onto the passenger seat and stared out at the forest. $6,000, 600 acres, and a squatter who thought he was running an HOA. This was going to be a nightmare. But I dealt with title disputes before, boundary disagreements, adverse possession claims. I knew how to fight, and Roger Caldwell was about to learn that calling yourself HOA president doesn't mean you own anything, especially not my 600 acres. Martin Chen called me back the next morning. "Brian, I pulled everything I could find on Woodland Preserve HOA. You're going to want to hear this." I was at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, still furious about Roger's text demanding $500. "Tell me." The HOA was registered with the state. In October 2008, corporate filing shows 5 members, all with the same last name Harper, related to the original developer Woodland Development LLC. What was the development? Subdivision called Woodland Preserve, planned for 15 residential lots carved out of the larger 600-acre parcel. Each lot was 2 acres, total of 30 acres platted for residential. The remaining 570 acres were supposed to stay with the developer. For future phases, how many lots sold? Only 3. Lots 4, 7, and 11. The development launched in late 2008, right before the recession hit. No one wanted remote forest lots to hours from the city. The developer went under in 2011, filed bankruptcy in 2012. The HOA went dormant, no meetings, no dues collection, no activity. But it was never formally dissolved, so it technically still exists. On paper, yes. But it has no assets, no authority, and no members except whoever owns those 3 lots. I thought about Roger. Lot 7. That's Roger Caldwell's lot. Correct. He bought it in 2016 from one of the original purchasers. Paid $15,000 according to the deed. 2 acres with a cabin, and the other 598 acres? That's where it gets interesting. The subdivision plat only covered the 30 acres of residential lots. The remaining 570 acres were never transferred to the HOA. They stayed titled to Woodland Development LLC. When the company went bankrupt, the land sat. Taxes went unpaid for years. Eventually, the county seized it and put it up for auction, which is where I bought it. Exactly. Clean tax sale. You own all 600 acres, including the 30 acres where the 3 lots sit. Roger owns his 2-acre lot. You own everything else. Then why is he claiming HOA authority over my land? Martin paused. I pulled the HOA bylaws from the state filing. There's a section granting members perpetual access to common areas for recreational use and enjoyment. Roger probably thinks that means he has rights to the whole 600 acres. Does it? No. The bylaws can't grant rights to land the HOA never owned. The common areas would have been parks, trails, maybe a clubhouse all within the 30-acre platted section. The developer kept the other 570 acres. Roger has no claim to them. I exhaled. So he's living on a 2-acre lot, pretending he's got access to 600 acres of HOA land that was never HOA land to begin with. That's the situation. And Brian, there's one more thing. What? I found Roger's name in county forestry records. He's been selling timber from that property for the past 3 years. I met Martin at his office that afternoon. He had printouts spread across his desk. Look at this. Roger Caldwell sold 40 cords of hardwood timber in 2023, filed the harvest report with the county, claimed it was from Woodland Preserve HOA common lands under sustainable management practices. I scanned the document. How much did he make? Timber prices vary, but 40 cords of oak and maple. Probably $12,000 to $15,000 from my trees. From your trees, Martin confirmed. He pulled up another record. That's not all. I did some digging online, found an ad on a hunting forum, turned his laptop toward me. Listing from 2022, Woodland. Preserve hunting leases available, 600-acre private preserve in Harmon County. White-tailed deer, turkey, excellent habitat. It's managed by Woodland Preserve HOA for sustainable hunting. Season leases $2,000 per hunter. Limited spots. Contact Roger Caldwell. I stared at the screen. He's been running a hunting lease operation on my land. Gets better. I found similar ads going back 3 years. If he's leased to even 5 hunters per year at $2,000 each, that's $30,000 total. I did the math. Timber sales, $15,000. Hunting leases, $30,000. Minimum $45,000 in income from land he didn't own. This isn't some confused guy who thinks he has access rights, I said. He's running a business. And using HOA authority, he doesn't have to justify it, Martin said. I'd bet money he's never paid taxes on that income either. Sat back, furious. What do? We go back. We explain the legal reality. We give him a chance to stop. If he refuses, we file for ejectment and restitution. Die. He's not going to stop. Then we take him to court and make him... We drove out to the property the following Tuesday. Martin followed in his car. I led the way down the overgrown dirt track to Roger's cabin. Roger was outside splitting firewood when we arrived. He saw us set down the axe and crossed his arms. You again, Mr. Caldwell. I'm Martin Chen, Mr. Holloway's attorney. We need to talk about the property. I've got nothing to say to you. This is HOA land. Brian's trespassing. Martin pulled out a folder. Mr. Caldwell, I've reviewed the county records, the tax sale, and the HOA filings. You own lot 72 acres. Mr. Holloway owns the remaining 598 acres. The HOA bylaws don't grant you access to his land. Hell, they don't. I've got perpetual access to common areas. It says so right in the bylaws. The common areas that were supposed to be created within the 30-acre platted section, Martin said. The developer never built them. The other 570 acres were never HOA property. They stayed with Woodland Development, which went bankrupt. Mr. Holloway bought them legally at tax auction. Roger's jaw tightened. The seller told us we'd have access to the whole preserve. That's why we bought. We've been here 8 years living under that agreement. What you were told doesn't create legal rights, Martin said. The deed to your lot conveys 2 acres. That's what you own. This is bullshit. Roger pointed at me. You swoop in by stolen land for pennies, and now you want to kick a family out? Nobody's kicking you out, I said. You can stay on your 2 acres, but you can't use my 598 acres. You definitely can't run a timber and hunting business on them. Roger's expression shifted. Just for a second, surprise, maybe fear. I don't know what you're talking about? Timber harvest records, Martin said. Hunting lease ads online. You've been generating income from Mr. Holloway's property without authorization? That's conversion. Theft. I've been managing the land responsibly. You've been profiting from land you don't own, I said. That stops now. Roger stepped closer. I'm filing a formal complaint with the HOA board. You're harassing members and making false claims. We'll see what the board attorney says. You are the board, Martin said. You and your wife are the only active members. You can't claim HOA authority when you're a 2-person association with no assets and no legitimate claim to this land. Roger's face went red. Get off my property. We're on Mr. Holloway's property, Martin said calmly, but we'll leave. You have 7 days to cease all commercial activities on this land and acknowledge Mr. Holloway's ownership. If you don't, we'll file suit. Roger said nothing. He glared. We left. The certified letter arrived 6 days later, not from Roger's attorney. From Roger himself, on Woodland Preserve HOA, Board of Directors letterhead, Mr. Holloway. This letter constitutes formal notice of violations of Woodland Preserve HOA bylaws. As follows. Unauthorized entry onto HOA common land multiple occasions. $500 fine harassment of HOA members. $300 fine failure to join HOA and pay dues. $200 monthly fee retroactive to first entry, total due. $1,400 plus $200 month ongoing. Payment must be received within 30 days. Or the HOA will file a lien against your property and pursue legal remedies for noncompliance. Respectfully, Roger Caldwell. President Woodland Preserve HOA, called Martin. Immediately, he's trying to fine me $1,400 and charge me $200 a month for using my own land. Martin laughed not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. He's desperate. He knows his position is weak, so he's trying to establish HOA authority through paperwork. Can he file a lien? He can try. It won't. Hold up. You're not a member of his HOA. His HOA has no authority over your land, but he might file it anyway to cloud your title and create hassle. What do? We file first. Declaratory judgment to confirm your ownership. Ejectment to remove his unauthorized use of your land. Restitution for the timber and hunting income. And an injunction prohibiting him from claiming HOA authority over your property. Do it. Martin drafted the complaint that night. We filed it the next morning. Brian Holloway v. Roger Caldwell and Woodland Preserve Homeowners Association, Inc. We allege trespass, conversion, fraud, and unjust enrichment. We asked the court to confirm I owned 598 acres, that Roger's HOA claims were baseless, and that he owed restitution for 3 years of unauthorized commercial use. We demanded $45,000 in damages. Every dollar he'd made from my timber and my hunting. Lisa's Rogers' response came a week later. A counterclaim, alleging that my tax sale was invalid, that the HOA had superior claim to the land through the bylaws, and that I owed the HOA $3,200 in fines and fees. He was doubling down, and I was ready for war. Because Roger Caldwell had built a profitable little empire on land he didn't own, using HOA authority he'd invented, and now he was about to lose it all. Every single dollar. Martin recommended hiring a private investigator. We need to document everything Roger's doing on your land. Commercial activity, trespass, financial records. The more evidence we have, the stronger our case. I hired a guy named Dennis Porter, a tired state trooper who'd gone into private investigation. Gave him Roger's name, the property address, and a list of things to look for. He called me back 3 days later. Brian, you're going to want to see this. Can you meet? We met at a diner halfway between my place and Harmon County. Dennis had a folder thick with printouts. Roger Caldwell's been running a full-scale commercial operation on your land, he said, sliding pages across the table. Hunting leases, timber sales, the works. The first document was a screenshot from a hunting forum, posted by user Woodland Preserve ROG. In September 2021, prime whitetail hunting 600 across Harmon County. Woodland Preserve offers exclusive hunting leases on 600 acres of professionally managed habitat. Trophy whitetail turkey, excellent stand locations. Season lease, $2,000 per hunter. Includes trail camera access, stand placement assistance, and habitat management, managed by Woodland Preserve HOA. Sustainable, ethical hunting top PM for details. I found similar posts going back to 2020, Dennis said. At different forums, same pitch. He's marketing it as a legitimate managed preserve. How many hunters? I contacted 3 who responded to old ads to confirm they paid $2,000 for season. Leases, 1 paid for 3 consecutive years, $6,000 total. Based on post frequency and responses, I'd estimate he's leased to 8 to 10 hunters per year. That's $16,000 to $20,000 annually. 3 years. $60,000, conservatively. I stared at the numbers. $60,000 from hunters paying to use my land? Dennis showed me more. Invoices Roger had sent to hunters on Woodland Preserve HOA letterhead. A basic website he'd built, woodlandpreservehoa.com, with photos of the forest. A hunting lease application form, and a mission statement about sustainable land stewardship. He's got meeting minutes posted, Dennis said, pulling up the site on his laptop. HOA board meetings. Look at the attendees. I read the minutes from a meeting dated March 2023. Woodland Preserve HOA Board Meeting. Roger Caldwell, President. Beth Caldwell, Secretary. Motion. Approve timber harvest plan for sustainable management of common areas. Result, approved. 2-0, he's holding meetings with just him and his wife, I said. Voting to approve his own activities. Exactly. It looks official, but it's just two people rubber stamping whatever Roger wants to do. Dennis showed me the timber records next. County forestry permits from 2022 and 2023. Roger had harvested and sold 40 cords of hardwood oak. Maple, cherry, market value, $12,000 to $15,000. He filed the permits claiming he was managing HOA common land. Dennis said, "The county doesn't verify ownership, they just process the paperwork." He sold the timber to a local mill, deposited the checks, and reported it all as land management revenue for the HOA. Does he pay taxes on it? I'd bet no. He's treating it as HOA income, and the HOA is dormant with no tax filings. It's probably unreported. I sat back, doing the math. Hunting leases, $60,000. Timber, $12,000. Total. $72,000 minimum. Roger. Caldwell had made $72,000 from my land, from land he didn't own. Using HOA authority he'd invented. What else? I asked. Got local support, Dennis said. I talked to a few neighbors. They think Roger legitimately manages the preserve. One guy called him a good steward. Another said the hunting program keeps the deer population healthy. They have no idea he doesn't own the land. Did you tell them? Not my place. But they're going to find out when this hits court, Martin sent. The cease sandices the next day. Detailed, formal, unambiguous, demanded Roger immediately. Cease all commercial activities on my land return. All profits from timber and hunting operations acknowledge. My ownership and his lack of authority remove all advertising and websites claiming HOA control. We gave him 10 days to comply. The response came from someone named Patricia Voss. Legal counsel, Woodland Preserve HOA. Martin called me. Roger hired a lawyer. Sort of. What do you mean, sort of? Patricia Voss is a paralegal who does document prep for small businesses. She's not a licensed attorney. But she sent a response on HOA letterhead. He read it to me. Mr. Chen, Woodland Preserve HOA is in receipt of your correspondence. Your client's claims are disputed. Mr. Caldwell's activities are authorized under HOA bylaws governing sustainable use of common areas. The HOA has maintained and managed this land for years in the absence of any other ownership claim. The tax sale your client relies on is under review for potential invalidity. Till ownership is confirmed by a court, Mr. Caldwell will continue managing HOA lands in accordance with his duties as president. She's bluffing, Martin said. There's no legal basis to challenge the tax sale, but Roger's trying to delay and confuse. What do? We file. We document everything he does in the meantime. I drove out to the property the next weekend. With a truckload of signs, private property, nitrogen monoxide trespassing violators will be prosecuted. I posted them every 100 feet along the perimeter roads. At the main access points, near Roger's cabin, made sure they were visible, legal, and clear. Roger found them within hours. I got a call from an unknown number. This is Roger Caldwell. You're vandalizing HOA property. Remove your signs immediately or I'm reporting you. Those are my signs on my land, I said. They stay. This is common area. You have no authority. I have a deed, Roger. What do you have? A 2-person HOA and some meeting minutes you wrote yourself? He hung up. 2 days later, Dennis called. Your signs are gone. What? I drove by to check. Every sign you posted on the main access road torn down. Found a few in a pile near Roger's cabin. I called the sheriff's office. Filed a report for theft and destruction of property. Then I called a security company and ordered trail cameras. 12 of them. High resolution, motion activated, cellular upload. I installed them over the next week. It's positioned to cover access roads, Roger's cabin, the timber areas, and hunting stand locations. Within 3 days, I had footage of Roger guiding 2 hunters into the woods, both wearing blaze orange, carrying rifles. Hunting season. On my land, Without my permission, I sent the footage to Martin. That's trespass, he said. And evidence he's still running the operation despite our CSAN desist. The sheriff showed up at my house a week later, Deputy Mike Collins. Polite. Professional, but clearly confused. Mr. Holloway, I got a call from Roger Caldwell. Says you're harassing him. Installing cameras pointed at his house. Trespassing on HOA land. He wants me to file charges. I invited him in, showed him the deed, the tax sale documents, the HOA research, and the evidence of Roger's commercial operation. Collins reviewed it all, shaking his head. This is complicated. It's not complicated. I own 600 acres. Roger owns 2 acres. He's been running a business on my land and threatening me when I object. He says the HOA owns the common land. Oh, the HOA doesn't own anything. It's a dormant association with 2 members, Roger and his wife. They're pretending to have authority they don't have. Collins sighed. Look, this is a civil property dispute. I can't arrest anyone for trespass when both sides are claiming ownership. You need to resolve this in court. I'm trying. Roger keeps escalating. Then let the judge sort it out. I'm not filing charges against either of you, but I'd recommend you both stay off each other's property until the court decides. He left. Nothing resolved. Martin filed the lawsuit the following Monday. Brian Holloway. V. Roger Caldwell and Woodland Preserve Homeowners Association, Inc., we alleged trespass, unauthorized use of my land for commercial purposes, conversion, timber harvesting, and hunting operations without permission fraud, misrepresenting HOA authority to collect fees from hunters and just enrichment, profiting $72,000 plus from my property we demanded. It's immediate cessation of all activities on my land restitution. Of all profits, $25,000 in punitive damages, attorney's fees, permanent injunction against claiming HOA. Authority over my property, we filed it in Harmon County Circuit Court and served Roger by certified mail. His response came 10 days later. A counterclaim. Thick, aggressive, full of legal jargon, clearly drafted by someone with just enough knowledge to be dangerous, Roger claimed. The tax sale was invalid because the HOA had a prior claim to the land. The HOA bylaws created an equitable interest in the 600 acres. I had interfered with the HOA's legitimate operations, owed the HOA $5,000 in fines for violations, plus damages for harassment. He asked the court to void my ownership and confirmed the HOA's superior claim. Martin read it and called me. He's swinging for the fences. None of this will hold up, but it'll drag out the case. How long? Months? Maybe a year? Discovery, depositions, motions. He's going to fight every inch. Let him. I want every dollar he made. I want him off my land. Then buckle up. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I looked out at my driveway, thinking about the 600 acres 2 hours north. Land I'd bought for $6,000. Land I legally owned. Land that Roger Caldwell had turned into his personal profit center. Using fake HOA authority and the assumption that no one would ever call him on it, he'd miscalculated because I wasn't walking away. I was taking my land back. Every acre and every dollar he'd stolen from it. Discovery started 3 months after. We filed. The judge ordered both sides to produce all relevant documents within 60 days. Tax records, deeds, financial statements, communications, everything. Martin and I spent a week compiling our evidence. The tax sale deed. County records showing clear title transfer. The subdivision plat. Dennis's investigation documenting Roger's hunting operation and timber sales. Bank statements showing the $6,000 purchase price. Roger's production was thinner. HOA bylaws. Meeting minutes from his 2-person board meetings. His deed to Lot 7. A handful of testimonial letters from hunters praising his land stewardship. And one document that made Martin pause. Look at this, he said, sliding the HOA bylaws across his desk. Section 4.2. Members shall have perpetual access to all common areas within Woodland Preserve for purposes of recreation, wildlife management, and sustainable land use. So, Roger's going to argue this creates an easement. That when he bought Lot 7, he acquired permanent rights to use the entire 600 acres. But the HOA doesn't own the 600 acres. Correct? but he'll argue the bylaws created an expectation, and that expectations should be legally protected. It's weak, but it's his best shot. How do we counter it? Martin smiled. By showing what land the HOA actually governed. I've requested the original subdivision plat from 2008 that'll tell us exactly what Woodland Preserve included. The plat arrived a week later. Martin spread it across the conference table, surveyed map showing the 600-acre parcel divided into sections in the northeast corner, 15 rectangular lots, each labeled and numbered. Woodland Preserve Residential Subdivision. Total area, 30 acres. The rest of the map, 570 acres, was labeled reserved for future development. Woodland Development, LLC owner. No HOA designation. No common areas marked. Just reserved. This is it, Martin said. The subdivision was only the 30 acres with the 15 lots. The HOA governed those lots and whatever common areas might be built within them, parks, trails, maybe a clubhouse. The other 570 acres stayed with the developer. Claim about common areas only applied to the 30-acre subdivision. Exactly. And since the development failed and most lots never sold, those common areas were never built. Roger's access rights, if he has any, would be limited to the platted subdivision area, the entire 600 acres. I looked at the map. Roger's Lot 7 sat in the middle of the 15-lot cluster. A 2-ker rectangle surrounded by other platted lots, most of which were never developed. He's been treating 600 acres like his personal kingdom, based on bylaws that only governed 30 acres. Now we prove it. The bankruptcy records for Woodland Development LLC came next. Martin subpoenaed them from federal court. The developer had filed Chapter 7 in March 2012, liquidating everything. The filing listed assets: office equipment, a few vehicles, $8,000 in a bank account. Liabilities: $340,000 in debts to contractors, banks, and investors. Real property: 600-acre parcel, Harmon County. Tax parcel 447820015. Subject to $18,000 in delinquent taxes. No equity. Abandoned to taxing authority. No mention of HOA claims. No easements listed. No indication anyone believed the HOA had rights to the land. The bankruptcy trustee's report noted. Real property parcel has no value after tax liability. Recommend abandonment. The land had sat unclaimed and unwanted until the county auctioned it to me. This destroys Roger's claim, Martin said. If the HOA had any legitimate interest in the 600 acres, it would have been listed in the bankruptcy. It wasn't, because the HOA only governed the residential lots, not the whole parcel. Roger's deposition was scheduled for a Tuesday in April. We met at a court reporter's office. Roger showed up with Patricia Voss, the paralegal, pretending to be his attorney. She tried to object to questions, but Martin shut her down every time. Voss, you're not a licensed attorney. You can advise your client, but you can't make legal objections. Mr. Caldwell, please answer the questions. Roger was defensive from the start. Martin began with basics. Mr. Caldwell, when did you purchase Lot 7? 2016. March. From whom? Guy named David Preston. Bought it from the original developer in 2008. Never built on it. Sold it to me cheap. How much did you pay? $15,000? What does your deed describe? Roger hesitated. Lot 7, Woodland Preserve. 2 acres? Does it mention access to the other 598 acres? It mentions common area access. Quote, the exact language. Roger fumbled with a copy of his deed. It says subject to easements and restrictions of record, including Woodland Preserve HOA covenants. Does it grant you ownership of anything beyond your 2-ker lot? No, but the HOA bylaws. I'm asking about your deed. Does your deed grant you ownership or access rights to land outside your 2 acres? Not directly, yes or no, Mr. Caldwell? No. Martin moved to the HOA. How many members does Woodland Preserve HOA currently have? Who are the other lot owners? Lot 4 is owned by someone in Florida who hasn't visited in years. Lot 11's owner died. I don't know who inherited it. Do they pay HOA dues? No. Do they attend meetings? No. So when you hold HOA meetings, it's just you and your wife.
Yes.
And you vote to approve your own activities? Roger's jaw tightened. We vote on land management decisions. Yes, like approving timber harvests. Sustainable management, yes or no? Did you vote to approve harvesting timber from the 600 acres? Yes. Did you own that timber? The HOA manages the common land. Did you personally own the trees you cut and sold? No. Did the HOA own them? Silence. Mr. Caldwell, did Woodland Preserve HOA own the timber you harvested and sold for $22,000? The bylaws grant management authority, that's not the question. Did the HOA own the land you took the timber from? I know. Martin pulled out bank records. You deposited $22,000 in timber sale proceeds into your personal account? Correct? Yes? And you've collected approximately $60,000 from hunting leases over 3 years. The leases are for land management. Did you report that income to IRS? Roger's face flushed. I'm not answering that. You're under oath, Mr. Caldwell. Patricia leaned over, whispered something. Roger looked at the court reporter, then back at Martin. I didn't report it as personal income because it's HOA revenue. Does the HOA file tax returns? No. So you collected $82,000, didn't report it as personal income, and didn't file HOA returns? Where did you think the IRS believed that money came from? Roger said nothing. Martin leaned back. Did you ever contact Woodland Development LLC before starting commercial operations? They were bankrupt? Did you contact the bankruptcy trustee? No. You contact the county to ask who owned the land? I assumed it was HOA common property. Based on what? The bylaws? The seller told me we'd have access to the whole preserve. Did you verify that with a title search? No. Did you consult Ann? Attorney? No. You just assumed you could harvest timber and lease hunting rights on 600 acres. I was managing the land responsibly. Martin's voice stayed calm. Mr. Caldwell, you made $82,000 from land you don't own, using authority you don't have. That's not management. That's theft. The judge held a preliminary hearing in June. Judge Raymond Foster, mid-60s. No nonsense, ran his courtroom efficiently. He'd reviewed all the discovery. The plat. The bankruptcy records. Roger's deed. The bank statements showing $82,000 in revenue. Patricia Voss tried to argue that Roger's activities were authorized by HOA bylaws and that equity demanded recognition of his stewardship, Martin countered. With the plat, Your Honor, the HOA governed 30 acres of residential lots. The bylaws can't grant rights to 570 acres the HOA never owned. Mr. Caldwell has been profiting from the plaintiff's land without authorization. Judge Foster cut through it quickly. Here's what I see. Mr. Holloway bought 600 acres at a legal tax sale. Clear title, proper process. Mr. Caldwell owns 2 acres within that parcel. The HOA bylaws govern the residential subdivision, not the entire 600 acres. Mr. Caldwell's commercial activities were unauthorized. He looked at Patricia. Your client's counterclaim is dismissed. The tax sale is valid? Mr. Holloway owns 600 acres. Mr. Caldwell owns 2. But, Your Honor, the bylaws can't create rights to land the HOA doesn't own. Motion denied. Roger stood up. Says, sit down, Mr. Caldwell. Judge Foster's tone left no room for argument. He turned to Martin. The question remaining is damages. How much does Mr. Caldwell owe for 3 years of unauthorized use? Seeking full restitution, $82,000 in profits plus attorney's fees, Patricia objected. Your Honor, Mr. Caldwell improved the land. He maintained trails, managed wildlife, enhanced value. He should receive credit for those improvements. He should receive credit for stealing? Martin shot back. He cut down the plaintiff's trees and charged hunters to use the plaintiff's land. Those aren't improvements. That's conversion. Judge Foster made notes. We'll have a trial on damages. 3 days, starting August 12th. Mr. Caldwell, I strongly suggest you consider settlement. The liability is clear. This is only about how much you owe. I'm not settling, Roger said. This land was abandoned. I was the only one caring for it. You were profiting from it, the judge said. There's a difference. See you in August, Martin. And I walked out of the courthouse into bright summer sun. He's going to lose, Martin said. The judge made that clear. How much will we get? Depends on how we present it. Full restitution of his profits, $82,000. Maybe punitive damages if we prove the fraud was intentional. Legal fees could be $120,000 total. And if he can't pay, we lien his 2-acre lot, force a sale. He'd lose his home. I thought about Roger and Beth and their kids, living on 2 acres they actually owned, surrounded by 598 acres they'd been treating as theirs for years. I don't want his house, I said. I want him to stop stealing from me, and I want back what he took. Then we go to trial and make him pay. We got in the car. I looked back at the courthouse, thinking about August. 3 days to prove what Roger owed. 3 days for him to argue he deserved. Credit for being a thief, and 3 days for a judge. To decide how much it costs to steal 600 acres and pretend you own them? I was ready. Because Roger Caldwell had built his empire on my land, and I was about to send him the bill. The Harmon County Courthouse was built in 1947 red brick. Tall windows, American flag out front, snapping in the August wind. The courtroom was small, maybe 50 seats, half of them filled.
Oh.
A few local reporters, some hunters who'd leased from Roger, curious how this would turn out. Roger and Beth sat at the defendant's table with Patricia Voss, who'd somehow convinced Roger she could handle a trial despite not being a lawyer. Martin and I sat across the aisle. He had 3 banker's boxes of evidence, had a folder with my tax sale deed, and a quiet fury that had been building for 18 months. Judge Oster took the bench at 9 sharp. This is the trial in Holloway versus Caldwell. We've already established ownership. Mr. Holloway owns 600 acres. Mr. Caldwell owns 2. Today we determine damages for Mr. Caldwell's unauthorized use. Let's proceed. Martin's opening was surgical, Your Honor. This case is about theft disguised as stewardship. The defendant, Roger Caldwell, spent 3 years running a commercial operation on my client's land. He harvested timber worth $22,000. He leased hunting rights for $60,000. Total profits, $82,000. He did this without permission, without compensation, and without any legal authority. We're asking the court to order full restitution, plus legal fees, plus a permanent injunction. Preventing future trespass. Patricia stood. She looked nervous, Your Honor. Mr. Caldwell is a family man who bought a lot in good faith, believing he had access to the preserve. He's maintained that land for years, clearing trails, managing wildlife, preventing vandalism. The plaintiff bought the land for $6,000 at a tax sale, now wants to profit from Mr. Caldwell's hard work. This isn't justice. It's opportunism. Judge Foster made a note. Ms. Voss, you understand you're not a licensed attorney? I'm a paralegal. Assisting Mr. Caldwell, you can't make legal arguments. You can sit with him, advise him, but I'll be treating Mr. Caldwell as pro se. Understood? Patricia's face reddened. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Chen, call your first witness. Martin called a forestry expert, first a consulting forester named Michael Torres, who'd reviewed the timber harvest records. Mr. Torres, you examined the timber sold by Mr. Caldwell in 2022 and 2023. What did you find? 40 cords of mixed hardwood, primarily oak and maple, mature trees. Market value at the time of sale would have been $21,000 to $24,000. Did Mr. Caldwell have legal authority to harvest that timber, based on the ownership records? No. The land belonged to Mr. Holloway. Mr. Caldwell had no right to cut or sell. Those trees? What's the impact of removing 40 cords of timber? Significant. That's mature canopy. It'll take decades to replace. And selective cutting without a management plan can damage forest health. Patricia tried to cross-examine. But Mr. Caldwell was managing the forest sustainably, Ms. Voss. Judge Foster interrupted. You're not asking questions. You're arguing. Sit down. She sat next. Martin called a real estate appraiser who specialized in recreational land. Ms. Patterson, what's the value of hunting lease rights on 600 acres? In that region, with good deer and turkey populations, Hunting leases typically run $8 to $12 per acre annually. For 600 acres, that's $4,800 to $7,200 per year. Over 3 years, $14,400 to $21,600. Mr. Caldwell charged hunters $2,000 per season. If he leased to 10 hunters per year, that's $20,000 annually. Is that above market? Significantly. He was charging premium rates, and he kept all that money. According to the evidence, yes. I testified next. Martin walked me through the basics. The tax sale, discovery of Roger's cabin, the confrontation, the hunting operation. The $82,000 in revenue. Mr. Holloway, did you give Mr. Caldwell permission to harvest timber? No. Did you give him permission to lease hunting rights? No. Did he ever offer to pay you for using your land? No. He claimed it was HOA property and threatened to fine me for trespassing? Patricia stood. Your Honor, I'd like to ask Mr. Holloway some questions. Go ahead. She approached, holding a notepad. Mr. Holloway, you paid $6,000 for 600 acres. That's $10 per acre. Correct? Yes. And now you're asking for $82,000 from a family that's been living there for years? Don't you think that's excessive? I'm asking for what he took from my land without permission. If he'd asked, maybe we could have worked something out. He didn't. Ask he stole. He maintained the land, he profited from it. There's a difference. Judge Foster intervened. Ms. Voss, do you have actual questions or just arguments? No further questions. Roger took the stand in the afternoon. He looked tired, defensive. Patricia asked him to explain his side. I bought Lot 7 in 2016. The seller told me the HOA maintained the whole preserve and members had access. That's why I bought. I thought I was getting a 2-acre lot with access to 600 acres of nature. What did you do after buying? I maintained the land, cleared trails, managed the deer population, kept invasives from spreading. I treated it like a community resource. Did you profit from that? Roger hesitated. I charged some hunters' fees to offset my costs, and I sold some timber to fund trail maintenance. How much did you spend on maintenance? I didn't keep exact records, but a lot. Equipment, gas, time. Martin's cross-examination was brutal. Mr. Caldwell, you charged hunters $2,000 per season, correct? Yes, how many hunters per year? Varied. Maybe 8 to 12. Let's say 10. That's $20,000 per year. Where's the $60,000 you collected over 3 years? Roger shifted. I used it for maintenance. Show me receipts. I didn't keep you collected $60,000 and have no receipts showing how you spent it. Where's the money, Mr. Caldwell? It went into general expenses? The property? My family? So you spent it on yourself? I spent it managing the land. Did you buy a new truck in 2022? Roger froze. How bank records? You deposited $18,000 in timber sale proceeds in March 2022. You bought a $32,000 truck in April. Did timber money help pay for that truck? I needed a truck for land management. Yes or no? Did you use money from my client's timber to buy a personal vehicle? Silence, Mr. Caldwell? Yes, the courtroom murmured. Martin continued.
Have active members as Woodland Preserve.
HOA. Have to? Me and my wife? Did you appoint yourself president? Someone had to manage things. Did the other lot owners, Lot 4 and Lot 11, authorize you to harvest timber or lease hunting rights? They're not involved. So you held meetings with just your wife, voted to approve your own activities, and collected $82,000 from land you don't own? The bylaws gave me management authority. The bylaws governed 30 acres of residential lots, not 600 acres. You knew that, didn't you? I thought you could profit from abandoned land and no one would notice. Correct. Roger's face went red. I was taking care of land no one else wanted. You're stealing from land my client legally purchased. That's not stewardship. That's theft. Judge Foster called a recess, then returned with his ruling. I've heard. The evidence, here are the facts. Mr. Holloway purchased 600 acres at a legal tax sale. Mr. Caldwell owns 2 acres within that parcel. Mr. Caldwell's commercial activities, timber harvesting and hunting leases, were conducted on land he doesn't own without the owner's permission. He looked at Roger. Mr. Caldwell, you claim you were managing the land, but you profited $82,000. You spent that money on personal expenses, including a truck. You can't claim stewardship when you're pocketing the revenue. Roger started to speak. The judge held up a hand. Your HOA bylaws don't grant you authority over Mr. Holloway's 600 acres. They govern the residential subdivision 30 acres, not the entire parcel. Your assumption that you could use the land doesn't create legal rights. He reviewed his notes. Is the judgment. Mr. Caldwell will pay restitution of $82,000, the full amount of revenue generated from unauthorized use. He will pay Mr. Holloway's attorney's fees, which I calculate at $35,000. Total, $117,000. Beth gasped. Roger stood. Your Honor, I don't have. Sit down. Additionally, Mr. Caldwell is permanently enjoined from entering the 600 acres except his own Twaker lot. No hunting operations, no timber harvests, no trespassing. If you violate this order, you'll be held in contempt. This is theft, Roger shouted. I've cared for that land for years. You've profited from land you don't own, Judge Foster said. Coldly, that's the definition of theft, Mr. Caldwell. The judgment stands. You have 90 days to begin payment, or Mr. Holloway can file a lien against your property. Roger stormed toward the door. This isn't over. Yes, it is, the judge said. Court adjourned. Roger tried to sell his lot within a week. Listed it for $35,000. No offers. Dropped it to $28,000. One lowball offer for $18,000, which wouldn't even cover a sixth of the judgment. Martin filed the lien, securing our claim against Roger's 2 acres. Then my trail cameras caught Roger, guiding 2 hunters onto my land. 3 weeks after the judgment, blatant violation of the court order, I called Martin immediately. He filed a motion for contempt. The hearing was brief. Judge Foster reviewed the trail camera footage. Roger in camo leading to hunters in blaze orange walking onto my land. Caldwell, I ordered you to stay off this land. You violated that order within a month. Why shouldn't I hold you in contempt? I was just showing friends around you were trespassing. After a court explicitly forbade it, 30 days in jail or full payment of the judgment within 60 days. Your choice? Roger went pale. I can't pay $117,000 in 60 days. Then you'll spend 30 days in jail and still owe the money when you get out. Maybe that'll motivate compliance. Roger looked at Beth, at Patricia, at me. I'll pay, he whispered. Good, 60 days. If you miss the deadline, the jail sentence activates automatically. Don't test me again. We walked out into the parking lot. Roger stood by his truck, phone to his ear. He's trying to borrow money he'd never be able to repay. I'd won. The land was mine. The judgment was mine. Roger's little empire built on theft and fake authority was gone. All that remained was collecting the bill and making sure he'd never set foot on my 600 acres again. Roger lasted exactly 19 days before violating the court order again. My trail cameras caught him on a Saturday morning in late September. Roger in full camo, leading to hunters both carrying rifles down the main trail into the eastern section of the property. I downloaded the footage and sent it to Martin immediately. He's done, Martin said. Judge Foster gave him one chance. He blew it. We filed the contempt motion that afternoon. The hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday. Roger showed up without Patricia this time. Couldn't afford her anymore, probably. Stood alone at the defendant's table, looking defeated. Judge Foster didn't waste time, Mr. Caldwell. I have video evidence showing you guiding hunters onto Mr. Holloway's land 2 weeks ago. Explicitly ordered to stay off that property. Explain, Your Honor. They were friends. I was just showing them around you were trespassing, after I specifically forbade it. After I warned you about contempt. Did you think I wasn't serious? I thought, ... They weren't paying, so it wasn't commercial. The order said no access. Period. Not no commercial access. No access. Judge Foster leaned forward. Here's your choice. 30 days in county jail or full payment of the $117,000 judgment within 60 days. Roger's face went white. I can't pay that in 60 days. You'll spend 30 days in jail and still owe the money when you get out. Which do you prefer? Roger looked at me, then back at the judge. I'll pay. You have 60 days. The deadline by 1 day, and you go to jail automatically. No extensions, no excuses. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Good, and Mr. Caldwell. If I see you on that property one more time, I'm adding another 30 days. Stay on your 2 acres. That's it. Roger nodded, silent. He listed his lot for sale the next week. Started at $35,000. No interest. It dropped to $25,000. Got one offer for $20,000, which wouldn't even cover a fifth of what he owed. Martin called me 3 weeks before the deadline. Roger's attorney reached out. He can't pay the full judgment. He's asking to settle for how much? He's offering to surrender his tool kalat to you. Clear the debt entirely. I thought about it. 2 acres with a cabin wasn't worth $117,000. But it would give me clean ownership of the entire 600-acre parcel. No enclave. No hostile neighbor in the middle of my land. But it also meant kicking a family out of their home. Counteroffer, I said. He pays $50,000 over 3 years. Keeps his lot. But he signs an agreement acknowledging my ownership of the other 598 acres and waiving any future claims. You're giving up $67,000. I didn't buy this land to evict a family. I bought it to own it. Roger pays $50,000 and stops stealing. That's enough. Martin drafted the settlement. Roger signed within 2 days. He took out a personal loan, probably at a terrible interest rate, and started making monthly payments. $1,400 a month for 3 years. He'd spend $50,000 total for the privilege of having stolen. $82,000 for my land. Not perfect justice, but justice nonetheless. I visited the property in October with a surveyor and a cleanup crew. Roger had actually maintained some of the trails. They were clear, well-marked, easy to walk. But he'd also left trash. Old tree stands bolted to my trees, spent shell casings. A broken ATV rusting near the creek. The surveyor confirmed the boundaries, helped me install proper fencing along the perimeter, and marked the line between my 598 acres and Roger's 2. I hired a crew to haul out the junk, remove the unauthorized tree stands, and post professional signage every 100 yards. Private property, Holloway land, no trespassing violators, PROSECUTD, took 2 weeks and $8,000. But when it was done, the property looked like mine. I had options now. The land had a clear title. No disputes, no squatters. I could sell it with proper marketing, probably $200,000 too. $250,000. Nice profit on a $6,000 investment. Or I could hold it. Land appreciates. In 10 years, it might be worth $500,000. Or I could use it. I chose the third option. Leased 400 acres to a reputable hunting club based 2 counties over. Professional outfit, liability insurance, proper management plan. Oh, they paid $8,000. Annually for exclusive hunting rights, I kept 200 acres for myself. The section with the best timber and a spring-fed pond. Personal use. Maybe build a cabin someday. The hunting club took over in November. They were respectful, followed the rules, and didn't try to claim they owned anything. It was what Roger's operation should have been legal. It's contracted and honest not. Everyone in Harmon County understood what had happened. Some locals still thought I'd been unfair. Roger was taking care of that land for years, and some outsider swoops in and kicks him off. I decided to set the record straight. I rented the community center in town and hosted a public meeting. Posted flyers, sent emails to the local hunting. Forums invited anyone interested. 30 people showed up. I stood at the front with a projector showing documents, the tax sale listing, my $6,000 purchase, the subdivision plat showing Roger owned 2 acres, not 600, his bank record showing $82,000 in revenue from my timber and hunting leases, the court judgment. I didn't kick Roger off his land, I said. I stopped him from profiting off mine. He still lives there, but he was running a $20,000 per year business on 598 acres he didn't own. That's not stewardship. That's theft. Ah. A hunter in the back raised his hand. I paid Roger for 3 seasons. Now you saying that wasn't legit? It wasn't. It had no authority to lease hunting rights. You were paying him to trespass on my land. But he said it was HOA property. The HOA governed 30 acres of residential lots, not 600 acres of forest. Roger lied to you and to everyone else. The room was quiet. Another man spoke up. So what now? Can we still hunt there? I've leased it to Clearwater Hunting Club. If you want access, talk to them. But it's legal now. Contracted. Proper. Most people seemed to understand after that. A few still grumbled, but the majority got it. Roger had lied. Proven it. And the land was mine. Roger kept his head down after the settlement. He made his monthly payments never late, never missed. I saw him occasionally when I visited the property working in his yard, staying strictly on his 2 acres. He didn't wave, didn't speak, just watched me drive past. His reputation in town was damaged. People knew he'd lost the court case, knew he'd been ordered to pay $50,000, knew he'd been caught lying about HOA authority. Some still defended him. Most didn't. He'd gambled that no one would ever challenge. His claim to 600 acres. He'd lost. The case had ripple effects beyond my property. The county clerk's office reviewed all registered HOAs in Harmon County, found 8 phantom HOAs, associations, registered years ago, dormant, no active members, but never formally dissolved. The county passed an ordinance requiring HOAs to file annual reports or be administratively dissolved. Rogers Woodland Preserve HOA was one of the first to be dissolved for non-dash compliance. Other landowners who'd bought tax sale property started checking for similar issues. 2 found squatters who'd been living on their land for years, claiming adverse possession or abandoned property rights. Both evicted them within 6 months, using my case as precedent. A local real estate attorney started offering tax sale property reviews, $500 to research title. Check for occupants and verify clean ownership before purchase. My $6,000 gamble had exposed a loophole people had been exploiting for years, and now it was closed. 2 years after I bought the land, I stood on the ridge overlooking the property, 600 acres. Forest, clearings, trails, a pond that reflected the sky like glass. I'd paid $6,000 for it, spent $50,000 in legal fees fighting Roger, invested another $15,000 in cleanup, fencing, and management. Total cost, $71,000. Current value, $300,000, conservatively. Maybe more if I waited. The hunting lease brought in $8,000 annually. Paid back my investment in 9 years, then pure profit after that. Best $6,000 I'd ever spent, but only because I'd been willing to fight for it. Roger had assumed I'd walk away, that the hassle of litigation would cost more than the land was worth, that I'd accept his HOA fiction because fighting it was too hard. He'd been wrong. I looked across the property, my property, and thought about the 2-year war, the depositions, the contempt hearings, the settlements. Worth it. Because now, when I walked this land, no one questioned who owned it. Not Roger, not the county, not anyone. The deed had my name, the trails had my signs, and the 600 acres, every single one, were, finally, undeniably, mine. 2 years after Roger made his final payment, I met a young investor named Chris Martinez at a real estate meet in the city. He'd heard about my case. Someone had mentioned it during a panel on tax sale properties and wanted advice. I found a 200-acre parcel going to auction next month, he said, showing me the listing on his phone. Starting bid is $8,000, but I'm worried about getting into a legal mess. How do you know if it's worth the hassle? I looked at the listing. Remote land. Years of back taxes. No obvious issues, but also no guarantees. You don't know, I said. That's the gamble. I bought 600 acres for $6,000 and spent 2 years in court fighting a squatter who'd built a whole fake HOA operation on my land. Was it worth it? For me, yes. but only because I was willing to fight. If you buy legally clean tax sale, proper process, the law protects your ownership. But you have to be willing to defend it. Some people aren't. They fold when someone challenges them. That's when squatters win. Chris thought about that. What would you do differently? Nothing. I bought land I could afford to fight for. The legal fees had been more than the land was worth. I would have walked away. But I knew the property had value, so I fought. And now I own 600 acres free and clear. Lease it for $8,000 a year. Land's worth $300,000. Best investment I ever made once I got rid of the guy stealing from it. The property had transformed completely. The hunting lease with Clearwater Club was in its second year, running smoothly. Professional hunters, respectful of the land, proper harvest records. They paid on time, followed the rules, and treated it like the privilege it was. I'd also leased timber rights to a sustainable forestry company. They'd surveyed the property, marked selective harvest areas, and projected $15,000 in revenue over 10 years from responsible logging. Nothing like Rogers/Ann Grab approach, actual forest management. Between hunting and timber, the land generated $10,000 annually in passive income. Total investment, $6,000 purchase. $50,000 in legal fees, partially recovered from Rogers' settlement, $15,000 in improvements. Call it $71,000 total. Current value, $320,000, based on recent comparable sales. I'd turned $6,000 into a $320,000 asset that paid me $10,000 a year. All because I'd been willing to fight when someone tried to steal it. Roger's final payment cleared 3 months ago, 30-6 months, $1,389 per month. Exactly $50,000 paid over 3 years, just like the settlement required. I saw him occasionally when I visited the property. He'd be outside his cabin, splitting wood or working on his truck. We'd make eye contact. Sometimes he'd nod. Sometimes he wouldn't. We never spoke. Beth still lived there with him. Her kids had grown up, both moved away. One to college, one to a job downstate. The cabin looked older, smaller somehow. A 2-acre island in the middle of my 600 acres. Roger didn't claim authority over anything anymore. Didn't run hunting leases. Didn't harvest timber. Didn't call himself HOA president. He just lived on his 2 acres and kept to himself. His reputation in town had never recovered. People knew he'd lost the lawsuit, knew he'd been lying about the HOA, knew he'd paid $50,000 for trying to claim land. That wasn't his. Some still defended him, said I'd been harsh, said he was just trying to make a living. But most understood the truth. Roger had convinced himself that living somewhere and using it meant owning it. Property rights don't work that way, and he'd learned that the hard way. I walked the property one Saturday in early November. The trails were in good condition. Clearwater Club maintained them as part of their lease. The forest was healthy, recovering from Roger's unsustainable timber cuts. Wildlife everywhere, deer, turkey, even a black bear sighting last month. I passed Rogers a lot on my way to the eastern ridge, saw him outside, raking leaves. He glanced up, watched me walk past on the trail that bordered his property line. I thought about how close he'd come to stealing all of this. If I hadn't fought, if I'd accepted his HOA claims, if I'd been intimidated by his threats and his fake authority, he would have kept running his operation, kept profiting, kept telling people he managed 600 acres of HOA common land. And I would have lost everything I'd legally purchased, but I hadn't accepted it. I'd fought, and now the land was undeniably mine. A young hunter met me at the main gate. As I was leaving, early 20s, Clearwater Club member checking in for the evening hunt. You, Mr. Holloway? That's me, man. You own all this. He gestured at the forest stretching in every direction, all 600 acres. That's incredible. Must have cost a fortune. I smiled. $6,000 at a county tax auction. His eyes widened. $6,000 for 600 acres? That's it. How is that even possible? Property went to tax sale after the developer went bankrupt. Nobody wanted remote land with no road access and years of back taxes. I took a gamble. Best gamble ever, eventually. But I spent 2 years in court fighting a guy who thought he owned it. Thought he owned it? How? He lived on a 2-acre lot in the middle of the property. Convinced himself that because he was here and using the land, it was his. Called himself HOA president, ran a hunting operation, sold timber all without permission, made $82,000 from my land before I shut him down. The hunter shook his head. What happened to him? Court ordered him to pay $50,000 in restitution. He still lives here in his 2 acres. Banned from the rest. Good. People like that think they can just take what they want. They think they can, till someone proves them wrong. He headed into the woods. I got in my truck. A kid on an ATV rode up as I was about to leave, maybe 13, wearing a hoodie, clearly from one of the nearby properties. Hey, mister, you the guy who bought this place? I am. My dad says you stole it from Mr. Caldwell. Put the truck in park, turn to face him. Your dad's wrong. I bought this land legally at a county auction. Mr. Caldwell was using it without permission. The court confirmed I own it. But he was here first. Living somewhere doesn't make it. Yours owning it does. I own 600 acres. Mr. Caldwell owns 2. That's what the deed says. That's what the law says. The kid thought about that. So he was lying? He convinced himself he had rights he didn't have. Then he tried to profit from land that wasn't his. Court made him stop. And you've got to keep it all. I kept what I bought. What was legally mine? Yes. The kid nodded slowly, then rode off without another word. I drove to the ridge on the north side of the property, my favorite spot. Parked and walked to the overlook, 600 acres spread out below me. Forest clearings, the pond glinting in the afternoon sun, trails winding through the trees. A doe and 2 fawns grazing in the meadow near the creek. This land had been a $6,000 gamble, then a 2-year legal nightmare. Now a $320,000 asset that paid me $10,000 a year and gave me a place I'd never sell. Roger had tried to build an empire. On land he didn't own, using HOA authority that barely existed. He'd collected fees, sold timber, run a business all based on the assumption that no one would ever challenge him. He'd been wrong. I'd challenged him, proven ownership, forced accountability, and now everyone Roger, the county, the hunters. The neighbors knew exactly who owned this land. The deed had my name. The court had confirmed it. The trails, timber, the wildlife, the future all mine. Roger had learned a hard lesson. Authority requires ownership. And ownership requires proof. I had both the deed in my file cabinet, the court judgment in my records, the property under my control, 600 acres, hard-1, legally owned, undeniably mine, and worth every dollar. Every deposition, every fight, because in the end, property rights mean nothing if you're not willing to defend them. I had been willing, and now, standing on this ridge, looking over land I'd fought for and won, I knew one thing for certain. It was worth it. Every single acre.